Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Deb 3 Events TV. You are watching Pass and Move, the number one soccer podcast in the land, brought to you by Benaya Foods. You can find Benaya Foods factory at 15240 Kelvin West, Konapa Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. They've also got supermarkets. They've got the Benaya supermarket at Chabalala shop number one just behind Zesa Emachipisa Lapana. They've got another one Ekwanda. They recently opened another one Mkanwini. There's another one there Mkanwini. That's our partners, our sponsors. But Utalugatand Utinita my sponsors. They are our partners. Today I've got a guest, a very knowledgeable guest in the world of business. You know him maybe from Sky's Metro. He does a business talk there at Sky's Metro. He's got a bit of history with football. That's why he is here. My partner in crime is not here with me. Daluvan V has got a family bereavement. Condolences to the family. My guest today, Mr. Reginald Shoko, has got a bit of history with soccer. He was a goalkeeper. Abantu bayakwazi put asuthi wawungugore. Kala kade akagore umuntu wayebamba lo from Elukhanyiso Empoma, where he did his primary and secondary education. He was a good goalkeeper, Mr. Reginald Shoko. In some circles, I know they say sir, but lapha seporen, comrade. Abangamaziyo, there's a little bit of history I know from this guy. This guy was a super talented goalkeeper before he went into the business field. Bakwazi nabantu ukuthi ubudayivela mntana.
Akafuni ngathi ngeke befune nje ngomzimba esenawo. Ngeke befune.
Zingamuli.
Hayi awunamngamula but umzimba nje. But
Umzimba wengamuli.
what cut the career was amehlo abanje problem amehlo then after that sedinga okunye kokwenza.
But you're a good goalie. A good embejini sasithembe wena.
Asasizama.
Akuna from Lukhanyiso Popo Bahai. Iko i-career yakhe yaphela khona ebhorohla wangena ku-education.
Yeah no icareer ayiphelanga siyadlala isocial.
Singo-social.
Yeah social.
Namangyaza abakulimaza amashoti.
Siyadlala isocial.
Anyway, let's get the show on the road. This is Mr. Reginald Shoko, as I've said. Some of you might know him from maybe a voice from a business talk. Guys Metro. Today we're talking all things business side of football. Mr. Rich, I've got one question that has been bothering me all season. Why is our football not properly monetized, if I may put it that way, in your own view and your own perspective?
I think the two things and
Mm.
football has evolved over the years from a social sport into a global multi-billion dollar industry. So world over football is run as corporations.
Mm.
And unfortunately now we have not caught up. I think in South Africa I've seen they've really caught up with it. Locally we have not really caught up with the corporatization of football or more of commercialization of football. And the pillars of the commercialization of football are obviously going to be broadcasting rights. It's very lucrative. But you see us, we don't really have those rights being sold or being offered to anyone who pays the clubs. That's a revenue stream that is lost in a hard time.
There was what's it called? Was it 3K TV?
3K TV. But you see, there was this time when DSTV was broadcasting the Premier League.
Sport.
Yeah, Super Sport. Yeah. And that deal was in the right direction. We needed to grow it. But unfortunately now, with the business, it's always a game of numbers. I think the Super Sport didn't get the numbers they hoped we have. Basically because Zimbabweans, that was we watch Super Sport, but we subscribe in South Africa.
Yeah.
Most of us subscribe in South Africa. So you find the numbers don't add up for Super Sport to continue making such a thing. And us paying and subscribing in South Africa means Super Sport believes that people in South Africa are actually enjoying the Betway League so they can continue broadcasting it.
Okay.
That was one of the biggest letdown of that deal, because numbers, in as much that they grew, but they didn't significantly grow for them to continue sustaining it. That's why I find they're still in Zambia, they're still in Nigeria, biggest because
I've
the
always
numbers.
wondered why.
It's always about the numbers, because business is not charity. That has to be told. Anyone who puts money expects a profit.
True.
Supersport, when they're saying we're buying broadcasting rights, they're expecting a profit. And if they started with maybe Zimbabwe, they start with 200,000 people viewing, they give it 3 years, they expect to be 500, 600. And then they're saying we're growing and they can be continuously channeling. But unfortunately, I think that was never concretized to everyone here. Because I think even a majority of houses in Zimbabwe, they are on that platform where SuperSport is on DSTV.
Yeah, true.
And a majority of them subscribe, especially in Ngabamathebelens, subscribe a goal.
You'll be surprised with even that other side.
Yeah.
Subscribe to.
Through South African account. So that actually was a big let for the T SuperSport. And also the other thing is always going to be merchandising, the club merchandise. It's what drives the commercialization of football in terms of business, and also there is also the issue of sponsorship. These two, I think we have pretty done well. We have somehow gotten something out of to appreciate. Ukuthi they can be revenue streams. Way and above, you see all other leagues. There's then fan engagement through social media. Those that provide also as a financial stream. But actually, the biggest challenge now, especially if you look at the Premier Soccer League in Zimbabwe, most teams are not set up for that to be run as business. They're still set up mostly board, once in a while talking about the CEO. But does the CEO have the support system? Does they have the ecosystem that drives him to do that? You look at how many teams there in the Premier League do have a business development guy. How many teams there do have a guy who does specifically marketing? To look at, okay, this is what is there, this is what we can sell, this is what we can offer. The value of a brand or a club, many people don't know. What if brand to value inja imalini?
You've touched on a number of serious things that will try to cover the whole season lockdown. But the one that's touching me the most is this one, the structure of the teams that you're mentioning now. We've seen lately a club like a big institution like Highlanders without replica jerseys. Yet you find a team like in Division 2, because we mentioned this where we're talking about Ikwanda Pirates. You find a team like Kwanda Pirates having replicas, the fans having replicas, yet a big institution like Highlanders, you hear stories like saying maybe there is no replica jerseys for season. Is how the bar is set in the PS, is that also so driving the corporate world away from the Premier Soccer League, or there is another angle that you can look into that?
No, what I agree is one thing. And are these teams set up to engage the corporate world? Are these teams ready, or do they sit down to plan? Because I think it's not only Islanders. You see that they're the best kit this year. Islanders Dynamos is the best kit, very competitive kit, I think, this year. But they don't have the supporting replica. Unfortunately,
Exactly,
you see,
that's my point.
And unfortunately, then was that those kits were seemed to be an off-shelf thing. And if you're going to print them, they'll be very expensive. I think they will sell at $50. When you, in actual fact, you're competing with Tanzania, uh, that's what more we're seeing most people wearing in these big brands that is selling for $10. What then should have happened is that they should have owned that market as teams to say, yes, this is the main replica. It's going to cost you $50. But we then classify A, B, D.
Oh,
And we now go even kurangala mtunelono enze Tanzania. Staying that is fage an endorsement of something through our branding. And we know that okay, lona outgoge $10, yakusithensile it. That's an income to us. Lona outgoge $20, that's an income to us. Because replicas by their nature, they will not stop having a fake. World over, we're having, like, look at APL. China's
Fakes are always there.
is making them. But also
But
then
originals are also selling.
selling.
Yeah.
So what you then do is that generally someone wants to be seen with an original. Not all of those 10,000 or 20,000 will put on original. Just look at the possibility of 1,000, even 2,000 putting on originals. That's a lot of income for you. And then the rest putting on number fake grade, different grades, and income being you, the provider. But I don't think they plan that. In the end, you then have to find abantu abamephandle abanabethengisa
Exactly.
those replicas, and that's their money. Unfortunately,
And the money is going to those guys.
individuals.
outside.
Unfortunately, this is the economy we have. It's highly informalized. But football clubs have an easy way of doing it by making sure they own the replicas. I think you've mentioned Quanta Pirates.
Yeah.
You've seen even Division 1. I think
Nkokeli,
Moors, you have seen also of
Zebra
Scotland,
Revolution.
Zebra Revolution. They've managed to understand that, okay, we cannot have a kit for $30. We can have it for $15-20. Smart sale. And there's always that because the person supports you. There's always that wanting to be part of it. I'm not letting it office.
Exactly. It's an original.
Right.
You feel part of.
Yeah, right with that. That's an income stream. But as you have said, are clubs set up for that? Do we really have clubs set up for that? Or our clubs are trying to set up for that just to pass a litmus test, club licensing a CAF with slimmer structures? I've read another time when these two clubs were going.
Which clubs?
Is Dynamos and
The big ones that we have in the country.
And Gez when they're going for club licensing.
Oh.
They have doctor, but it's just a doctor. He's registered, but it's not within all the papers that are required. So it's not Dr. Arch. But we have a code in a club, papers are far. So, this we are just passing test. We're doing things to pass test. But unfortunately, football is now a business.
A proper.
And the problem with business is always about I put something to make something.
Exactly.
And if you're not structured with a proper environment or your key system is not properly ready to get funding, cash by all means, money is very shy. Where it's not going to cycle well, it will never come. This is unfortunately what we have seen with our football. That's why we don't really have too much money in football. Because the setup of football is not yet ready for corporate world to sickly sell. And then you will then find that most of the sponsorship we have are more of personal endorsement more than anything else. Okay, I know actually, because this is the explanation we can have for maybe Scotland to have 2.5 million.
I was about to
They haven't even kicked a ball in Premier League.
Yeah.
They already have that sport. And we look, the sponsorships are about friends. They've said, let's help this guy talk. But is it commercially driven? Would they get anything out of that? No, it's more of a charity case. But in the real scheme of world, football is a business. It's not a charity case. It's a proper business. If you can put something, you'll get something.
And you touched on the issue of numbers. I've always believed that, like, the Zim PSL has got numbers, but why is the league not attracting more corporate people into our football? Because numbers are there. We cannot say numbers are not there.
No, the numbers are there.
Yeah.
But what we then need is, in this age of business, is as the data. It's not raw data. What we see is raw data. We read in the newspapers, APF 15,000, there was 20,000 in there. That's raw data. It does not help me to make a decision from a marketing point of view. I need to have that data to say there were 10,000 at the Highlanders Wanky match. Of those 10,000, I need to know maybe 5,000 were women, 3,000 were kids under 18. That's the data that drives decision making. Because corporates come in for a return. You can't expect corporate A that does cooking oil to come and put money in football. Because I go ask to Mama Bangai. So because their whole idea is I'm putting the name there because I know these people use cooking oil, my cooking oil. So those are the numbers that we need. But this is now We can sit down. PSL can tell you this year all our matches were watched by 1.7 million people. All our matches, which is a very good number.
It's a very good number.
But can we distill that number to say this is Dagwa, Les Zazi Lava, and then this is this? Can we do that? I think we have not done that. Why specifically we have not done that is the other reason why we are not getting corporates to come in. And then at the end of the day, once we appreciate that if we are to build our soccer, we then need to manage the match day as a proper event. Because it is anywhere in the world, match day is an event. It's properly managed. It's 10 o'clock, things start happening that builds up to give an opportunity to whoever wants to put. Who's going to sell my ticket? E-ticketing is there, is already online. So someone who then says, okay, I can sell e-tickets for Islanders. Maybe I'll make 2 cents. So for my 2 cents, if these people can sell 200,000 tickets every 3 months, my 2 cents is got to be this, I'll give them this. That's sponsorship coming. It's built up like that. There's no one who will give you until it's political money to just give you money. But even that political money is also giving you to build a narrative to support the certain political party. So it's not for free. There's never free lunch where money is involved. I'll give you a classic example. We have actually seen that is possible in Zimbabwe. I think in the two finals, Chibuku finals, super finals, you have seen what has happened. The previous year, last year, it was more of an event. In Ngezi, it was more of an event. They brought, I think, Enzo Aisha, Super Macheso and stuff. The gates had opened at 10. At 12, there were people. There were people who were not coming to just watch soccer. There were families that think, okay, want to watch Enzo and then top up with football. It's built up. The numbers were impressive. Dynamos had bad numbers this season. At their weakest point, they're going to a final. But the Ngezi, no one expected them to win that final.
Exactly.
But the numbers were very impressive for that final.
Exactly.
Because someone has sat down and said, okay, let's manage this final as an event. If we are to do that every day game, definitely we'll get some.
Because I wanted to ask this. I don't think the clubs are not seeing what you are saying. But now, the problem we're having is, are we having the right people at these clubs?
No, there's always got there's these things and ideas. These things and ideas, obviously, they need someone whose job is to do that. That's why I told you, we have a CEO. Wonga club like is CEO because club licensing requires a CEO.
Exactly.
Do you have a marketing officer? No, even do you have a marketing manager? No, you don't. Do you have a business development manager in? Those purely looking at what no, we branded Nathla. This week's team le Cameron Kamtanda. Empankwini ngale yabela abantu abayi-50. Abantu abasingabayenza bebe 100 cents kanjani. How do we get them 100? Okay. Sidlala ngesande siyalenda. All right. Izwane, yabo. Azla show. Madoda bayanisiliye 2000 la. Esishayela yachaya between 12 and half 1. A ground lapha nasi 2000. Usually will pull 3000 of their funds. Who come for that 1 hour to watch, but they will not go out after yes. They will enjoy football. So you have built up a number for next week. Double combination. Then you go from there. Then you build up and say, okay, was sponsored by Castle. Was a problem. Why don't you go then do a draft?
Because we've seen maybe in SA.
I'll give you a close. Botswana, when I watched Dynamos in Botswana, people were drinking beer in the stadium.
In the stadium, yeah.
But the very thing was that it must be a plastic.
Plastic, yeah.
And people enjoyed it. It was a family. You could see that, okay, we just need to move these people. But it's an income to you as a club. You understand? So those are things that we need to look. And I think you can then look for how to license them specifically for that period.
Beginning of the season, they say alcohol is going to be sold.
But there's a licensing requirements that are needed. But I think you can look for whoever, like your council, you look for a council, even look for the people who are licensing board and say them for these special matches, just like how they do licensing for shows. You just need to get that to do that. I think there's an issue in terms of coordination around clubs for those streams. Our clubs are mainly focused on get takings.
The old school type of
Yeah, get
run.
takings, and then you say we are run mad. Because I'll tell you, we will not get procuring lights today or tomorrow, so we'll have to survive. The easiest thing is to change our match day, make it an event that brings more money to ourselves. Look at it into one thing: transfers, as for say. I tell people, if you had people look at the business model of Black Aces Academy, look at even Metembe with his Bantu project.
Yeah.
Those are people who showed that they sat down and decided to do the business end. Ikuthengisa abafana laba whether sabathengisa emazweni sabathengisa every season sathengisa 2 or 3 and it makes sense. There's something to show. Look at now the Premier League is awash with the Black Aces players.
Even look at Marvelous Nakamba, you look at the teenage
Yes. Ngabantu
Kama Billiard,
look kama bonga lo
Msona.
Donovan bonga they are Aces Academy products. Aces is still even up to date July. You look at I was looking at one time when I was looking at them, these guys, they almost have a player in every team of Premier League. But they are Division 2 Academy. So their business model is simple to say, okay, even si local, konabas besign 5,000, 6,000. If we have 20, so we have 100,000. We can run our Division 2 side for this next season. Next year,
without any worries.
Next season, maybe someone breakthrough stings or 1 euro. So that's the side of business that people need to look into. Besides just watching it, my numbers.
Speaking about transfer market, also there's, as we are saying, there's money to be made. There's a business model side of it, but in our PSL or Zim era, we're not seeing the growth of, maybe say, if player A is sold to a certain team, we know every detail of that transfer and the money that's the club A or club B, maybe say the club that developed that player is supposed to get so many percentage. There's a gap also in that space for
I think that the problem is always about management. The biggest problem we have in management of it's purely a management issue. Clubs watch this contract run out. We're on 31 December. No one is worried there, but
Perfect
half of your
example.
team is
Perfect example.
a contract will
The
expire.
Bulawayo Giants.
So you will never get money from that.
Perfect example. The
Because
Bulawayo Giants.
the 1 year before, start negotiating, tie him down. Whether you like him or you don't want it, just add another year for a possibility to do a Kwanskushain. I'll give you a good example. Uchikua, Leonard, last season they were almost offloading. You didn't even add up a season. He's the best striker on the land this season. He's going for free.
There's so many examples of people going for free.
If I'm the board, I'll fire the CEO. Because that's a loss that we're running.
Yeah, it's so
We can't
unfortunate.
have. But you are unfortunately for the traditional giants, they've become a platform to showcase talent
For others.
for nothing.
Yeah.
And then the next guy goes, psh. You know, it then.
But you see how much these clubs are losing in terms of the transfer of players itself.
To know
Or-
that they don't even see it as a loss. To them, it's just no, it's contract peli.
Yes.
I'll give you a good example. How then you say a player like Leonard, okay, he goes and signs a Maketsi for 300,000 rands. He's a free agent. To you, as a club, you should have looked at it. That 300 could be coming to us.
Exactly.
So we have lost 300.
Exactly.
Then you should be looking at that from that point of view. But the other challenge is like when we're talking about today, are we looking at football as a business? Was the business
there's a long way to go. I think in Zim.
Are we looking at it as a business? Was a business? It's always an income. We are selling something, and as a club, our biggest product, is the player. All other things support the player and the team. So we need to look at the player as a product,
As an
as he
investment.
side. As a player then adds up to a team that brings a brand. So that part of the puzzle is like we are not worried. We're worried I know the team and quality. But what adds up to it, Menkulu? It's those players that play every day, attract the fans. They are part of the puzzle.
They're also
So
attracting corporate as we started.
yeah, they are part of the puzzles. So keep them, knowing them their value. Because you walk into teams now, ask them leave a squad of first team squad of 23, 24 players. What's their value?
Ish. Exactly what I was saying. In Europe, we'll definitely know what the player is
It's
worth so
valued
much.
yeah, what's their value?
Yeah.
What's their value? You don't even know what's their value. We have an assumption. Okay, now remember those next year ngabe simthengisa nge-20,000 xa simthengise local next year
And there was a reason.
and then build up the scenarios financially to say, okay, if all things go work well, singadlala kuhle, this is our financial position and plan around that. I think this is the information that is required to know where you're standing, where you're building. But unfortunately, there's not been an inquiry or an investigative issue around what's the value of the club. Because even Matimama, they don't even know their value.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. When I see a Zimbabwean player or you Google a Zimbabwean player, you check on the transfer market. There's those three dots.
There's no value.
The value is not known.
It's not here because we don't value players. You know what the biggest challenge with doing that is then lead to a situation where you create an enmity between teams, between agents. Because I'll come and get your player and say, no, 4,000. When knowingly very well that the same player I'm giving you 4,000 is needed by Scotland or by Platinum for 25,000.
Yeah.
Then you wake up, no, you don't know the value of your player. Lina, you're just having a player. Players are an asset. So in your asset register, you need to know all the values. This is the value. Once you understand players as assets, you also see the importance of actually insuring them.
I'm seeing I'm seeing a lot of gaps in because I'm saying two bars business. I'm not familiar with most of the business side of this, but you are. And my question is, there are a lot of people who know business like you do, but they're not involved business side of our football. What seems to be the reason? Because if you've got this abundance of knowledge about the business side, then we've got these teams who are seeing the gaps, yet nothing is being done. How can we close the gap? That was always mentioned something about NAST. There's the NAST effect that you always said. Why are club not utilizing
It's culture. Important is used by, generally what we call football administrators, most of them, supporter is Kwamula. They make the environment
very difficult.
That's why I find it's hard for a young man to have a board member island. This is the culture. It's the culture that needs to change. And if that culture changes, you will then attract. That's why I find these small teams are doing very well. Because they don't have that culture. They are open to opportunity, to ideas. They are open to opportunities coming away. Because I'll tell you, a big brand like Islanders just need to sit down and look at for a good brand local and say, do the business development around this brand. Whatever you raise, you get 30% of it. Run with it.
Because this is a big
commercial. The brand will get somewhere. But the problem is the environment, the ecosystem at Highlanders allowing such a development. That's the biggest problem. Because you then find that some people are actually benefiting from the informal trade of a fake replica. So he doesn't want a formal one. You go on top of the roof to make replica, knowing very well it's just pushing, but deep down
his business
is thriving. So it's always got to be
a culture problem.
It's a culture that we need to, and culture doesn't easily change.
Change is very, very difficult.
You mentioned Kwanda. Kwanda Pirates is a small team,
very small,
funded by someone who's in England. Agreed, boys are strong in Kwanda. They have no limitation. It's a new culture. They are moving without all the obligations of e-culture, team versus sense, so for the sense, so no.
And they're attracting big numbers.
Yes.
People who have seen Gwanda Pirates, I tell you, I was so shocked when I saw their Facebook page and I saw the numbers that they are attracting and the order that's there. I was like, this is a Division 2 side, but we've got Premier League teams that are not attracting so much.
No, obviously you see order is everywhere. I think you look even certain teams in Division 1, even here, Northern, Southern region, even Eastern region, there are some teams that are orderly. To extent to know these teams must be playing in this Zimbabwe Premier League because they are orderly and they show some direction in terms of understanding one or two things about business. Yeah. And then you say, I drama cool with
Well, exactly, that's the problem, and it has affected the whole league now.
because if the leaders and the elder teams are not seeing it, then there will
But-
be no standard. Hopefully, with Scotland trying to do these things, it might create a standard.
Because I've got another perspective. Because when we grew up, we knew nothing about Tanzania football, Zambia football. But look at now, bruh. Look at the Tanzanian league. They're also attracting players. Back in the days, no Zimbabwean wanted to go play in Tanzania.
It's the money. It's the money, and it's the corporate. I think you've realized that the big companies in Tanzania have been pouring a lot of money in football. That has also brought up their football to say, okay, we want to get our football to a certain level, and they're pouring. In Tanzania, I think there are 4, 5, up to 8 big teams with proper commercial backing. That makes the league very competitive in terms of attracting talent. Even in Malawi, no player will want to cross to Malawi 5
Proper.
years from now.
Yeah.
But they are crossing now because that's the issue of man.
Even the Kafa is from Zim.
They are crossing because there's always man. I think corporates will always come if the environment is good. One will hope that maybe a change in leadership at Zifa will bring a new culture that will cascade through PSL, and we'll see more corporates coming into football.
Looking at, you've mentioned another important subject. Looking at Zifa, we've got elections coming up. They were supposed to, maybe when this episode comes out, they would have announced those that have made
The cut.
the cut to be the Zifa president. We've got quite a number. We've got Jerry Farai, Machana Filmon, Magaya Walter, Maruaru Benjan, Kore Marshall, Kweza Martin, Makwizi Nqobile, Mliswa Temba, Kore Marshall, and Makwinyi Soma. Only 2 former footballers that I see on this list. Looking at this list, who do you see taking our football to greater heights or to new heights? Because all these gaps that we've been mentioning, I think trouble started with this, that we've got no leadership.
I think what we're facing now, I think what we just need to do is to clean slate, start from the bottom and say, well, let's start afresh. I've heard this argument here, so with the former players and the stuff. Yeah, I always put it from a business point of view and say, njengoba wasebenza eKhango, sengahambe eKhango ethi kuwena angangilapha lapha isofuze ngithi. Because the former players, they will have played their part. Babehola phela, babesemsebenzini. They can come in, yes, to contribute, but entitlement must not be the case to say we know better, it's not an entitlement. I think what we need to understand is that globally football has become a business, and it's a big business. You can't have okay, let's be minimalistic and say Zimbabwe will get about between 16 and 25 million from FIFA annually to run football. You can't then have someone ongela 2 cents who's never holded a million or who doesn't have the capacity in terms to read the million to then say God means 10 million young God. So there's a challenge. And then also we don't need to be looking at that man and say, yeah, we need to grow it. So we need someone who's got ideas to grow it. So now I would like to believe that we need a straight jacket, someone who's an appreciation of both football as a business. And there's a passion as a sport. We need to go there. But the key takeaway will be football is a business. And how do I then take care of the assets? The assets being the players, the stakeholders, supporters, the national teams. I think NC normalization has done well. For the longest time, it have done very well. I think I'll give you that done well. They've brought in. We're now watching women football. We were now watching under 17, under 24. But at least zifa is national team. We never knew that there was junior football.
Yeah.
So that is a you need to then support them from that end to say, okay, they've even qualified without playing football local.
My argument on the normalization committee, there were FIFA guidelines because our football was banned. So they no other choice but to follow the guidelines of.
No, this is where the start is. You have started. Whoever must come in needs to look at the majority. Okay, singa improve a local, singa localize a local going forward. That's what we need to be looking at.
So from the list, let me put your head on the block. From the list.
I'm now from the list. I will tell you one thing until it's finalized. Who goes through, and then I can look at the final list. Because these are all ambitious people who have just put papers.
Let's look at them one by one and say, take for instance, Makwinji Somapil. Does he have administration background, Makwinji?
No, unfortunately, we know Makwinji from playing football. And I think going for presidency is too ambitious. Being in the board will have been very good for him to then give a direction and a perspective from a dressing room and a player on the ground. Remember, this is one of the biggest assets. It's a dressing room player perspective. It must be represented there. In that board, you need someone who is it's just like even a setup in my industry. That's why kule West Council. Ohlangana khona izisebenzi umuntu ovela phakathi factory le management. Imanagement nxa kumuntu imali siyanga. Lona novela factory part bamdala kuyachisa phakathi lapha. So we still even in that board we will need someone like that. Makwinji will have gone for that. I think we have seen this thing. I think it's a culture, an entitlement culture that comes from. Yes, not all of them have done well. We've seen Eto has done well. Kalusha, for example. But look at their backgrounds. Before they went in, they did some administrative course of something. They had an appreciation. They didn't wake up to say something president and then leader. They had a certain appreciation. So I think this jump starting without appreciation is dangerous.
So that thing of putting qualifications is proper.
Oh no, I'm going to run 20 million on 5 levels. Because 5 levels is minimum. If in this setup, if obviously I'll give you a good example. If a so chain of 45 levels, so chain black from kitchen, the 5 levels. Who kitchen must kitchen is a but it's only 5 levels. And this policy for 5 levels is cut for investing for 5 levels. These people, all of them, in their entirety, not all of those that are participating in their life will they administer is so to have that budget at 20 million. But it's not close from Fagalaba, I administer into a 2 billion. I get a 5 levels. Yeah, good luck.
With a financial background as well.
Obviously. Let me tell you one thing. Why we say 5? It's a minimum, a bare minimum. We know technocrats will run, your executive, your CEO will run. But I'm for a good triple, allowed to sign. Appreciation. Because it's the party, then have to have that appreciation.
Exactly.
So that I think 5 levels was the way to go. But I then say you need to create waivers, maybe for committees. Your technical committee to say, okay, technically, Sfuno Archwadlali Bora. So he's got this. We don't need our O level abache. He say, if O levels, but we forget experience. We can do that. But not administrative, I Zefuna 5 levels.
With Marwaru Penjan. I know him as a coach, not as an administrator.
Yeah, even as a coach, he has not done anything. To jump.
He failed in Gezi. But he's doing some coaching pages.
You can do coaching pages and everything. But at the moment, I think it's too early for Benjane to think he can lead football.
We've got a person like Walter Magaya. Now I think we now know his track record. if let's say he makes the cut. Umbona njani?
I think there's a problem. The biggest challenge with I think the man of God has too many things in his hands. He's got a church to run. There's construction happening here and there. He's got business, and then also unfortunately he's got to have a lot of things that are following him. Gold mine scandals, this and. I don't think
It's bad for football.
no. I don't think it. I'm not saying it's bad for football, but I think he's too busy for football.
Like you mentioned the scandals and stuff. I mean, as a leader, it will be also.
It's bad for football. It's bad for football. He must concentrate running on his football team. I think he and contribute from there.
Ufarajere,
Yeah.
he's got a track record.
He's done well for Cape United.
Yeah.
He's been done better at PSL, but I think he jumped the gun. He should have continued. His major achievement was to buy land at PSL. He should have built from that to Ayaki office. Next election, yes, I think we'll have done that. Actually, my argument is coming from this. I want a clean slate. Farai has been involved in PSL, has been involved in the previous board. So these ones, I automatically drop them. I started saying,
Temba.
Temba,
Temba, please.
Temba, from my point of view, and is jolly a good fellow that we'll need. We are bulldozer, we are Nzan. But the problem is that Temba, you can't know what tomorrow you wake up with.
Exactly what I was telling you. You remember that in Jerusalem.
He's a good leader.
Exactly
but what you
her.
wake up tomorrow with is unfortunately you don't know what you need to do. At the moment where we are, we're coming from being banned, starting things, putting up new setup. He's not a guy that you can bring in at this time. Because you can just
Exactly.
we're starting afresh. You need someone who's going to cast something. Or Temba as a kitchen, you can bring them. Ungo comes from a business point of view. The little that he has done in terms of football, getting rise in terms of Sakunda sponsoring Dynamos and Islanders, their involvement in football generally, we can say at the start. But it's not. You will then have to have a thick skin for football.
That issue of they say you have to have 2 years in the country. I think he has been in and out of the country.
Yeah, the one that they've been involved in this, they will survive. They will pass through the case.
So if say he makes the cut, is he the one that you are?
For my argument is that we need a clean slate. Him and whoever has never been involved in football have a better chance from me if I was going to vote. Or if people listen to me, who to vote for. I'll give you a good example. At the NC came with people literally with new names. And so long as I had to bahlanya abantu beFIFA la basiletela abantu laba ngoba hanbo likhona wayengotana but bayenza nathi bengekho boreni. But you look at their job, they started wrongly. But where they've taken football in terms of putting structures and everything, they've done. They can't go over. They've done that. Let's have a committee that comes in for the next 5 years to continue what they've built. And this is Ngabuya Tramasele Pora. This was as million. And I was as shaky, this is sharp. So right. Yeah.
By the way, please subscribe to the channel, help us grow as a channel. So Rich, looking at the coming season with the new zifa, say there's a new zifa.
Obviously, there's a new PSL.
New PSL as well. What are your expectations? Because whatever that we're talking about is problems and troubles that we are seeing. We want the football to grow going forward. What's your take or expectation for the new upcoming season, 2025?
I think it's a simple thing, man. First things first, PSL needs to capacitate teams, even by training. Would appreciate team who are a business. Put proper structures. These teams are spending a lot of money, but there is those archaic infrastructure doesn't help. Get someone, a knowledge guy, who then sit his job to sit there. No, this week was like 5,000. Build a story. Remember, man is raised from stories. You will never raise money from anything. You have to sell a story. And football is a big story. Players have their own stories. They are big stories. Clubs have their own stories. They are big stories. So raise money from that. And I think football infrastructure by its own, clubs needs to understand that we are running a business. I think ama-club la asekefuzaka lando izimra mbijana. I-demand or take clearance lan. Ibahlukuluze mbijana so that they understand that they're running a business.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they know ukuthi uluza a player for to run out the contract. Executive because you've lost a player. If that player signs, I'm saying to any board chairman now sitting, you've lost 7 players. The same player that you've lost goes and signs to a next club for 8,000 for 2 seasons. So being 7, or 10, you've lost 250,000. What's $250,000?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money. So you must be thinking from those numbers. You must look at those numbers before making any decision. Because akula player ongayimelela ukuthi contract will expire. Uyafuna ukwenza.
And looking at the just ended PSL, games were not events. I was worried.
No.
Games were not events.
Ama-game ezimbabwe i-shift. I-shift emanda. Sonke singena ngo-quarter to 2, quarter to 3, siyebukela ibhola ngo-5,
At times 3 o'clock.
sesifuna sesihamba. I-shift emanda. We're just coming there for a shift. So the whole idea is that clubs need to understand that that is their day. Yabo. Kafana lo muntu echeche avuke ekuseni ngo-6 icheche ingena ngo-8. Alungiselele to make sure yonke into iyahamba. Lo muntu uyemtshadweni vele. Le nto even the hardest thing to do in life, umuntu uyangcwaba umuntu. Akavuki ngo-9 ngoba kuthiwa kungcwatshwa ngo-10. Uvuke siyalungiselela. Football must also appreciate the same thing. It must not only be the players. The venue must also be in that space. I think, and I also have heard the cry. There's a big cry. No touchline advertising is owned by
but
they're owned by stadiums. Yes, I understand. It's owned by stadiums. Team A, go to China. Bring those screens. Liyawafaka artificial. Ekhoneni ngale. Lithengisa space. You don't touch the board. It's a simple thing. Put your screen, lithengisa space. You have VIP. Why are you making VIP people pay to VIP people pay? Here's umuntu VIP by invite corporate to see what company buzobukela ibhola umfaka ubuhlala abana bukela amashu la appreciate but into kufuza sikuncedisa. I appreciate. Invite people that make sense. I want to talk umuntu to VIP
after having this conversation I've realized something. In our football, we don't have people who've got the brains to run our football.
No, they have the brains to run football, but they don't have the brains to make it a business. And not everyone is gifted to do that. That's why I'm saying I'm advocating that employ people that will bring that ideas. I think I'll give you a good example. You saw even large chiefs without money. Then a guy who was running their social media. He made them big in social media. That's what you need. You need to have the talent to do things. And it brought in corporates to support Black Chiefs because they wanted to be associated with the banter in social media, the numbers. That's what you need. You look at what do we need? Islanders, we have those 100,000 to 20,000 every week. What can we get from those 10,000? $1 every match. We are getting direct. This week are we going to be selling Cup BF, Mama Cup Palo Islanders, Brandon Islanders. Are we going to be selling? Try and eat off something from there. And sometimes just say, okay, Bozu Island, Namusha, Slama Bangle, or Ticket, Jaunigi Bangle. Try and get loyalty, engagement at certain levels. Then funds, when they're properly engaged, they'll start spending on the right things.
Are you getting something? We are inspired to come into football as an administrator also. Mr. Rajay, it has been a nice and lovely conversation. I've learned a lot. I hope next season, because unfortunately this is our last show of the year, and what a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
I know, anytime. I said, anytime.
I'm hoping next year we'll have more of this. I know where Uvan V is. He was eager to be part of this show, to be part of this conversation also. I'm extending an invite for you next season to be part of Pass and Move, because business segment, I think is a very important. So I'm not the only one learning. Also, our viewers are getting something, and I hope some of the say people from the clubs will watch this episode and learn. We need to share it so that it gets to the relevant people so that they learn, because there was a lot to learn and there's a huge gap in business. Ungagqini ngokuya kwiskazmetho ukutalking business kuphela, sakufuna lasebhoreni. About ebhoreni kuyafunakala abantu abanjengawo. On that note, thank you for gracing our shows, and that's the end of our show. Please remember to like and subscribe and help the channel grow. Please, siyacela this cool is like just like what where's Ipenaya.
I know this guys.
So maybe when I do the word disimpupula. Thank you for watching, guys.